So welcome everybody to the Front Row Media Podcast, season 2, episode 4. I keep on saying a special guest, so I'm just keep on continuing it. Another special guest. Super, super special right now because we're crossing borders essentially. So we're in the UK. Well, I'm in Joburg. She's in the UK. I'll let them introduce themselves though, but then this is somebody who I have the honor of essentially being a fan of, working aside. I followed their work. I'm very interested in what they've done. They're essentially a writer, just like me. I'd say like a fashion journalist. So I'm very keen to also delve into the world of fashion journalism, cross-bordered, the Black experience, and just learn more. So without further ado, introduce yourself, just maybe who you are, what you do, and also like where you're at. Yeah.
For sure. Well, firstly, thank you for having me. It's as much as it's an honor for you, it's an honor for me, and I'm forever grateful for the way you've supported me and this opportunity, and always carving out space for like upcoming or even established talents, especially
Real
within the community across the world. So, thank you. Um, I'm
pleasure.
As- I'm Aswan Magumbe. I'm a London-based writer and journalist. I graduated from Central St. Martin's in, oh, wow, been a while, July 2023. And
Yeah.
since then have,
I mean, not that long. Like, it's
no,
not. Yeah.
it's long, but it's not that long. It
Yeah.
feels like multiple lives. Um, But yeah, in my final year, I created BLIQ Magazine, a digital platform for Black British youths. And I just realized actually that I was probably limiting myself a bit too much by not broadening that reach to global, which is where Odwa came in.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's me essentially in a
Real.
little nutshell.
Real. Dude, like I'm such a fan of like what you do. Again. And I think like it's so cool identifying, and I'm speaking personally now, it's so cool identifying somebody who I felt as if like is doing something similar, in a similar vein, in a similar ethos as to like what I'm doing with Front Row Media. Like, I don't know, man. I think the first time I was like, yo, and I was like, yo, you're literally in a different country. And I was like, I don't know, like when I don't know, like borders and stuff, I guess, like I can understand that, I understand like being in South Africa, being in London, or like whatever it is. But like when you get to work with somebody, or when you get to admire somebody's work and you feel as if like they're like somewhat in distance, I was
For
like,
sure.
because I remember writing the first article for you and stuff, and I was kind of like in a bit of like shock, and I was like, is this really happening? Um, but cool. I think like now I want to maybe just get into then let's speak about that, your passion for journalism. I mean, I've assumed you've got a passion for journalism. I mean, you've started a magazine, so I'd assume that's the case. But like, what's the vibe with that? Like, I mean, yeah, where did it all begin, journalism wise?
So, I've always had quite stylish, fashionable parents, or have always been surrounded by that in a familial sense. My dad was like the streetwear kid in like the 80s, 90s London. And obviously, he's from Zim. But when
Yeah,
he was growing up as like a young adult teenager vibe in London, he found himself in like the streetwear, skatewear scene, hip hop, jazz, all that. My
yeah,
mum was more on the technical side of fashion, a very stylish woman, but she like as life progressed kind of was more technical with it. So like she's the one who's got the pattern cutting, whatever. But
mm,
when I was growing up, my mom had like Marie Claire magazine, Glamour magazine,
yeah,
and parents had always been very, very keen. Education was important to both of them, so they had been very keen to have me write, like reading from an early age. And I was reading from like they say like 2 years old, which is crazy. I'm
that's
like, how's a 2 year old
yo,
reading?
that's
But
insane though. Hey, like that's so real.
it's crazy. But
And
so I guess that's where it all began, and that's where they kind of saw it was heading somewhere. And then by the time I was leaving primary school, aged 11, I was already looking at doing the fashion journalism course at like the Condé Nast College, for example, because at
Yeah.
that point I was like, oh, I think I'm heading or I'm aspiring to like Condé Nast, like Teen Vogue, British Vogue. And then when I did my A levels, I did English literature, sociology, and photography, which are very like journalistic, tailored subjects if you put them all
Yep.
together.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and then got accepted into CSM on the fashion journalism program. I just think like I'd always loved storytelling and I'd always loved writing and I always loved reading. And for a long period of time, as I was like growing up, becoming like a teenager, I much preferred like current affairs and like
Yeah.
global. I never
Yeah.
wanted to be a politician. That was not my portion.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I love that kind of side of things. So yeah, I think journalism was always going to be in the mix in some capacity.
Yeah.
After I was done with school, I was definitely done with English literature. So I was like, yeah, I'm headed for journalism. But
Yeah.
I didn't start looking like fashion journalism until I'd say I was maybe 16.
Mm. I mean, that's actually a good age, eh? I'd say that's a good age. It's a good age. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I would say in South Africa, that's also like that's I would say here in SA it's a bit early even. Like I
You think?
think, yeah. Like I don't know. I got into fashion journalism very late. Like,
Mm,
and it wasn't even the initial thing which I got into, you know?
yeah.
So I got into like I did like economics first, but I did economics first because I had to, basically.
Real.
And then like, but then I started realizing maybe like when I was like, I think probably like 19,
Yeah.
um, I started really like realizing that, okay, cool, like I could be a writer. And I was like, what? I was like, people pay for this? I was like, what?
Well, very much, but yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
So I think 16, I'm like, yeah, fair age,
That's
fair age.
crazy transition from economics to journalism and fashion journalism like that. But I also guess that economics is like worldly in the sense that like you are observing changes and evolution across the world. So it
Yes.
it makes more sense than maybe it would sound off the bat.
100%. It sounds like a wacky combo on the surface, but
Yeah.
if you actually think about what it is, you realize it's like, fuck, dude, like it's like it actually works. And I think like I have an economics brain, I think.
Mm.
So numbers matter to me, but
Right.
like I'm not sure what the sides of the brain are, but I'm analytical fair, but I see in color, you know? Like I can hear like I can hear color if that makes sense. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's the other side of the brain. So
Mhm.
yeah, so I think that's the magazine part. That's I think being an editor also makes sense because editors are very pedantic about things.
Definitely.
Um,
It's the strategy and the analysis part that comes in, which is actually an underrated skill and like trait
yeah,
of journalism for sure.
but I always wonder. I'm always shocked. I'm like, why do I like this so much? It always shocks me.
Mm.
I'm like, I'm not attracted to purely fashion design, for
Mm.
example, you know?
Mm.
I'm attracted to like everything which goes behind. Um, but yeah, so then wait, how difficult is it to get into CSM? I've always wondered.
Oh, I can't even remember what the percentage is. Like I remember on our first day, they sat us in one of the lecture halls and they were like, the likelihood of somebody getting into CSM, I think it was like I could be so, I don't even want to say it in case I'm wrong, but it was quite a small percentage. Like it wasn't more than like 20%. I don't even know if it was maybe more than 10. But
I hear what you're saying.
pardon?
And I was saying, I get what you're saying. I hear
Yeah.
you.
But
But you're good though. So like you're always gonna get in. Duh.
no,
Like,
well,
yeah.
I don't know. Like I just this is another thing that I'm always like very keen to stress because I know that there is a stereotype that comes with having gone to CSM or going to CSM.
Yeah.
And I'm just like I genuinely never thought of myself as a CSM student. I never thought I would have got through 4 years there. And I actually never would have applied if it wasn't that my dad was like, Aswan, you're in anything you do, you strive for the best, and so you aim to go to the top. So the top
Yeah.
for journalism in
Period.
the UK, or at least in London, was CSM. So in my head, I'm
Period.
not thinking like I'm gonna get in. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking
Yeah.
like I'm
What's the
just going.
best?
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of that was it. And then after the interview, I got a personal call, but I do think she called everyone, from the course leader at the time, Judith Watt. And I remember being in the local university library revising sociology, and she calls me and she's like, just wanted to let you know, Lovey, that like we're happy to offer you a place. It is a conditional offer, but we're happy to offer you a place. And I was thinking, like, what? Like, this actually changes things now, because I was expecting to like genuinely, and like, it's not even like London College of Fashion was my second choice. My second choice was University for the Creative Arts in Epsom. And I just remember being like, this actually changes everything, because there is not one person in my life who's going to tell me, like, you're not like, don't apply to CSM, or like, don't accept that as your first choice.
Duh.
So,
Facts, bro. Like, you gotta take
like,
that.
no,
You gotta
no
know.
one.
Nah. It's like, I don't know.
No.
I don't know. I don't know when I think personally, like, and I mean, I'm a lecturer, dude, and like, even in my lectures, I'll be playing a lot of the stuff from like CSM, you know, like I love the Alexa Chung Vogue bits. I'm a big Alexa Chung fan when she still did her thing, but like, I remember she did the whole series and stuff in the one she visited CSM. Like, and I showed it to my students, you know what I'm saying? Because like, it's, yeah, dude, for real, because like, it's good that it's I consider it's like it's how can I put it, like it's also good to aspire towards things which are quality, guys, like, you know what I'm saying. I'm like, I just like how, like, I don't know, designers aspire towards like luxury like houses as creative directors and stuff like that. I think, like, you know, I also have the same thing for like the school in Antwerp. um
Mm,
is it the Royal Academy of Arts or something? I'm not.
yeah.
Yeah, the one like all these flipping Antwerp six guys went to.
Mm.
Um, but like that school, I have the same thing about it, you know, just like FIT as well, arguably too. So um that's
I
kind of
think it.
how I think
I
about it.
think I think it comes down to like however far you want to go with something. If you want to almost reach the top, I don't want to reach the top. If by God's grace I end up being an EIC one day, or like an editor, then cool, fine. But like, I don't want to reach the top. I just want to participate in the culture of good journalism, also
Period.
tapping into fashion. And I think like in that process, you have to challenge yourself. And
Yeah,
I was just like, you know what? I don't think I'm cut out for CSM. I don't know how I'm going to do it. But I'm just going to go for it, because I know it's going to be a challenge. Like, I knew it was going to be a
yeah,
challenge.
yeah.
Um, Perhaps to a fault at times, but
Mm,
like, not that I feel invincible, never, but I do just feel like I'm a lot more prepared for the industry having gone
yeah.
there. And for that,
Mm.
I'm incredibly grateful.
And I like how clear you are. I like that what you said right now. I'm not trying to go to the top, or this thing, or be that what you might call. And I think that's a lot of people get lost within like that ambition. And sometimes it's like, dude, I just want community. Like, there's a reason
Mm,
why I do this. It's because it needs to matter, doesn't need to matter for everyone. You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't even want it to matter for everyone, because that's when it loses like its thing. But like, as many people who can relate to it as and have an intimate thing to it, like, you know, I have the same thing about front row media, you know?
mm,
Um, so yeah, that's actually very, very refreshing.
mm.
Now, BLIQ Magazine. Tell me
Yeah.
about it. Tell me about it. Like,
Oh.
what's the chat? Yo, when you even started, by the way, and like, maybe, yeah, like, I mean, I know, again, like, I won't even chime in. I want to hear it from you. Like, so you tell me when you started, the name. Um,
Mhm.
Go for it.
So Blick came about in my, what year would it have been? I want to say it was 2021, maybe
Yeah,
2019. 2021. So we had this project in our at the end of our second year, just before we were either going to go into final year or go into our placement year. And it was called the Self-Initiated Project. And you basically had to almost do like a tester of your FMP. It was at the very end of summer term. And I was just like, it was a really turbulent time. We were just coming out of lockdown, so adapting into like real world. And I was just thinking like, whatever it is that I create now, obviously there's no pressure for it to become my FMP, but it would be so helpful if it was, because then I could spend my placement year, which I knew I definitely was doing, like connecting, networking, preparing for that, gaining the experience. So I idealized BLIQ in 2021 for my self-initiated project in second year. And genuinely, like, I'm going to toot my horn just because when
Yeah,
that name, I was like, I'm taking, like, this is it. Like, when it came, I was like, this is it.
that's the
I,
point.
I knew I wanted to do a project centered around Black culture in the UK, because you hear about it globally, of course, but like especially in the UK there's this whole like decolonizing the curriculum, like and I was just like, I myself have to learn so much about like Black Britishness
Mm,
on a historical front, because I don't know enough about it. Like, my dad is first generation Zim. My mum is second generation Ghanaian. So her parents came from Ghana. And like, I was just like, how do I fit into this? Anyway, so I was just like, and that I was like surrounded by a lot of really talented like young Black British creatives, or if
yeah.
they weren't Black British, they were at least Black in Britain. So I wanted to focus on that. And like, I remember my tutor Judith at the time, she was like, you can't do this unless you like look at Drum magazine. And then that was a beautiful, like, that was so enriching, and I'm so glad she like was like, you must do that reference point. And then like Ebony and Jet, that I love so much. And like
Shout out
so
Drum Magazine.
shout from
I took my students on a tour because there's an archive which exists in Maboneng here in Joburg. Yeah, yeah. So like that was mad crazy.
for sure.
I was yeah, even I'm like literally learning and stuff. So I get you on that part. Like, dude, like a lot of like black journalism existed at very, very early time, and we just don't know about it, or it just wasn't documented, but it
Which
was
is
there. It was literally
exactly.
there. Like they had this stuff probably in a way more formalized way than we even have like right now. Like, because I mean, they had jobs, they had like full on publishing houses, like which were literally just like Black Run, for example.
No,
I know
literally.
because South Africa at the time we had apartheid,
Mm,
like, so, but like even during apartheid, they had fully functional newspapers,
mm.
magazines. And it's so crazy to me. And that's literally, dude, like while people are dying, like risking their lives, like fighting for the struggle,
So,
how we see that is because of images taken by them.
mm.
You know what I'm saying? And I found it to be so crazy, actually.
So
Um,
crazy. I think even
but yeah,
looking at a modern day perspective, for example, like, people think of like the Rihanna cover and they immediately go to like British Vogue under Edward and M4, or like one of the American Vogues. And I'm like, her cover for Essence was gorgeous. But
yeah,
of course, fly under the radar because it's a predominantly US based Black publication, which is
yeah,
a shame. I do just think like there still is like such a market for it. And I wasn't looking to tap into the market at all. At that point, I very much was like, sure, I see that it's potential, but BLIQ will first and foremost be a student publication that I'm
yeah.
hoping first class out of. That was literally it. So it was like there was no pressure until people were showing interest, and I was like, oh,
I get what you're
oopsie.
saying.
Yeah.
Um, so I think then like how like because I know you also had other people contributing and writing in different parts of like the world essentially. I think. I mean, I'm in South Africa and I literally wrote a
I
piece
think you were only international.
for real.
I think you were. So I had writers from different parts of the UK who were like either studying there or were from there. But actually, I think I lied. Trey was based in the US. But other than you
Sure,
two, I think everyone else was UK based.
sure. Got you. And I mean, I think it's so crazy even for me because like when I saw it earlier on like and I posted it on stuff on like Instagram. Um it's I don't know, the community we've got here is just so curious and it's so like I don't know, man. Like, and I think that's me tooting, like, I don't know, South Africa's horn, I guess. It's like the youth here, like, are very like, you hear what I'm saying? So when they see stuff like that and they see, okay, cool, like there's opportunity for cross collaboration. Um,
100%.
yeah. So I always thought about that. And I always thought that even from FRM's lens, I was like, you know what, dude, like why do we limit our thinking? If you've got a vision, if you've got a mission, you meant to just really go out there as well and just spread that.
Mhm.
So I always wondered about like FRM in the UK. Like, what's the landscape like there? Are they interested in what's happening in like South Africa, for example? Or like, yeah, like I'm always very curious about like that
For
specifically.
sure.
The appetite for South African like culture in places like that.
I think it's tricky because not that it's tricky. I just
Mm,
think that it's like maybe this is just my lens, but I maybe how do I say this? I want to think before I speak.
yeah. Or is it even like a thing that like because I've also noticed that people also prefer coming here. I've always wondered about that, hey?
This is the thing, like how much South African culture can you bring to the UK really? You've got to touch
Yeah.
land. You've got to touch SA for you to get it. And I do just think in specifically within the black community that is being fostered at all different levels, no one wants to do a project on South Africa, Nigeria, Lagos, like Accra, Ghana, or like all of these like beautifully enriching
Yeah.
like nobody wants to do that unless you're actually going there. I've seen a lot of projects coming out of like Morocco, Senegal, and like you don't want to. I feel like you would be doing it an injustice if there was no first hand research. Like if you didn't go there
Uh,
and like speak to the people, see the culture, immerse yourself in it. I guess we're just regurgitating the cycle of like exploitation and like what's the word?
okay.
No,
So I wanna yeah, definitely, but I wanna unpack that then. So do you feel as if like there's like still like and again I don't know because I'm not like from the UK, you know what I'm saying? But like do you feel as if there is some form of like not really like a colonist thing, you know, but like I don't know, like is there like a battle between blackness and like for example being let's say like from like the UK? Like I'm trying to ah
yeah, 100%.
oh okay.
Like I think we're owning it. And keep in mind, like I'm very much saying this from like I'm 23. So I'm seeing this from like a
I
Gen
get it
Z,
though, but your
like
POV does matter, you know what I'm saying? Like
you know,
it's
and
POV.
and exactly. And my, I have what my parents tell me, I have what my grandparents tell me, and I'm grateful. And I also have what my friends tell me as well. But I just think like there is such a deeper desire, and naturally, I guess this is post lockdown and the pandemic, but I think there is such a deeper desire to just reconnect with the home, like the motherland. Like
I feel
I
you, man. That's real.
after Black Lives Matter specifically, like it was actually globally, but its impact in the UK, like how it played out here,
Yeah.
we've just realized that like I don't want to speak for everyone, but I know I personally realized that like as much as I could make the UK my home, it will never be my home. And
Real.
I never truly know or feel myself how I feel about blackness, being a black woman, how I feel about my heritage if I'm not going back home.
Yeah.
So I that within the fashion industry, there definitely also is like a recognition of this, and I appreciate that a lot of the stories are being told by like black writers, black image makers, black creatives. But they're going back home, or at least they're trying to. So yeah, it's always going to be complex. But I don't I think like there's
Yeah.
always, it's just how much of the wider society will let it in. But um, as long as you've got black people in the UK, there will be stories from home being it like with people itching to tell them here. It's just how much they do, I guess.
I get what you're saying. So interesting. Like I read this book. I didn't even finish it for sure, but like I remember it. It's called Manchester Happened. Um,
Mm.
and that's the one book I think like, and I think it's literally written I think by a Ugandan I think like writer if I'm not mistaken, either Nigerian or Ugandan, but like the whole point is the fact that like they're also now they moved to the UK, I think something like that, or they were raised in the UK or something, so they're writing about it from a perspective of like being lost, and trying to find their way back home in terms of all these short stories. And I remember like what you're saying, like right now and stuff. I've never ever heard it anywhere but like in stuff like that. That's why
Mm.
I ask. I'm like, um,
Mm.
it's interesting as well because like when you're in Africa, also like, you kind of, I don't know, like, and speaking like now as a South African, it's just like it's a thing of like it's a we like love our country. You know what I'm saying? And loving our country, like we love our cultures as well. It's just that we've always like been robbed of opportunity. And I think
There's a
like
part of that though that I'm like not entirely opposed to, just because, not like that, but I just mean that like the culture is so sacred. I almost
yeah,
don't want to come over and be tainted. Do you know what I mean?
I get
Especially
what
if
you mean.
it's gonna be seen by wider Western media. I don't want to leave it up to representation to people who don't care to understand and never going to understand it. So it's tricky,
Literally.
but I completely get your point. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, also like you're representing yourself and your culture. Like your culture doesn't matter technically where you are geographically. You know, it's like it's also like it's your culture. So for me, as how we believe for things, your culture is your ancestors. So where your
Sure.
ancestors are, like that's actually like where you're from. You know, so that's why like I'll always want to be buried on in South Africa, on African land, because I feel as if like, yeah, dude, I wouldn't be able to rest how like if I'm buried in like this in the like the UK or something like that. Like it wouldn't make sense.
No, no, no.
But like I totally get you on that.
Mm.
I think then just two more questions. Think the first one is like I've always wondered, not really wondered, yeah, wondered is. I mean, I have my opinions formed by like my perceptions and stuff like that, but like I've always wondered from like an insider's perspective, I guess, what the representation vibes are within the UK in terms of like Black creatives. Um, I think like I don't know, like as you see, I see things okay called Ib Kamara, for example, Dazed Mag, obvious things like that. But I mean, those things are very much like the rare instances. You know what I'm saying? Like,
For
so
sure.
yeah, so I always just kind of like wonder, like what is the vibe when it comes to like Black representation. I guess not even just in fashion journalism now. Let's extend it. Like, let's just say Black fashion media completely.
Wow.
Photographers as well. Um,
Mm.
stylists, I guess, also fall part of the thing. Um,
Mm.
but like, yeah, because I would like here in South Africa, we definitely have a very rich working culture. And I say rich,
Right.
I mean in the sense of like it doesn't, you aren't really limited in terms of like, how can I put this? Like it's like the work comes first, if that really
Mm.
makes sense. So um we try and create cultures around the work, if that really makes sense. Again, Joburg, it doesn't really matter like what your skin color is. Or
Mm,
like, so your ambition is really what will dictate how far you go, you
for
know,
sure, for
and in
sure.
what circles you find. So I always wonder, like being in the UK, like
Mm,
is how is it like there, like as a creative of color?
mm. Um, it's a fight, that's for
Yeah.
sure. But the beautiful thing to see is that we're all fighting, and we're all like, well, I would say like trying to bring people up with us.
Mm.
Um, like I'm also very blessed. I went to a great school, so I think some of the next up and coming pioneers creatively, um, Fermi Esso, Jessica Madavo, South Africa's very own. Like I
Yeah,
think they're
shout out, yeah, shout
shout
out.
out. I
Yeah.
think, for example, there too. I think like Patty Mayong, she's not from here, but she's based here. She's great, and I think, and that's just, I guess that's more so like, I don't know if I want to diminish them. It's like traditional fashion, but like
Yeah.
you've got that side, obviously, Fermi stylist, Jessica photographer, and Catty designer. But then you've got like the streetwear scene in the UK, which has kind of always been a little bit like maybe under the radar. Like I feel like the streetwear scene in the UK is very much like if you know, you know. But now
Mhm.
with like the success of, I don't only want to say Cortez, but nobody else is coming to like I've not like
I hear you.
but like I think that's a culture that a lot of people, regardless of your race, are trying to feed into. And also those are like,
Mm.
that's by a West London boy. So West London in
Mm.
itself is such a
Mm.
multicultural hub, as is most of London. And so you've got like Waleed Labry who's working with him, and like
Mm.
um Finn Flint, and there's all these like incredible
Yes.
creatives. And there's also like the setting up of a lot of third spaces. So like a
Yeah.
theme club that's run by like Liv Jank and Zainab, I can't remember her last name. And then
Mm.
all of the women, like the young women that they foster and nurture within that. And like Bobo's Cafe, obviously started by Sloan and his partner Tallulah,
Yeah.
and the hub that's becoming like and Sonda, which is a great platform started by a young woman called Hillary. I don't want to butcher her last name, but
Yeah.
that in itself is also like fostering so many up and coming creatives. So I do just think that like um there are ways being made, and there are
Yeah.
spaces created for young creatives of color, whether they know it yet or
Yeah.
not, and whether they're aspiring to it or already establishing themselves. Like there is room for them to grow because these places are being, yeah, nurtured and created by people who I'm sure would have wanted that for themselves when they were growing up. So
Yeah.
um
Real.
I think that's how representation for young creatives is going to go. I do, because sometimes I help out at my old university on their outreach programs, and I do say to the young girls, or like young women particularly, and especially those of color, I'm
Mm.
like, don't even worry about having to like put in extra work. Just do the work you're passionate about, and if you're passionate, that will drive it forward. And
Mm.
I just think it's very easy to get caught up in that this person doesn't like me. How am I going to fit into this collective? How am I going to
Mm.
be seen by this person? How am I going to afford to buy this like piece of machinery or product that maybe might take me to the next? Don't overthink it. Just do,
Mm.
and things, if you want it bad enough, will fall into place. But
Right.
it to a point where it's like I'm no longer, I cannot afford to wallow in the fact that like, oh my gosh, what if I'm only seen as a black journalist? What if I'm only seen as a black? I can't afford to do that anymore. I'm passionate
Mm.
about writing. I'm passionate about journalism. I know what I want to do, and you just have to go for it. And I think that
Yeah.
goes for everybody. You need to like, it comes a point where you have to stop um taking what everyone has said is your disadvantage, and and just work at it. And yeah, whatever we achieve, it will always
Real
be
stuff,
like
bro.
first black women to, no, we just did it, that's it. And
Yeah.
the rest is a great addition, but you know what I mean. So yeah.
I get what you mean. I get what you mean. Period. That's so real. Yeah, and then the last one. What? Oh, I love this. When I wrote this question, I loved what it said. Future plans for BLIQ and beyond. Wow,
Uh
BLIQ and beyond.
I'm gonna have to take
So,
that.
ah,
I'm gonna have to take BLIQ and Beyond.
yeah, yeah. Take it, grab it, like for real. I thought you'd
I
like
will. I will give.
it.
I will
I
give
thought you'd
creds.
like it.
No, I love it. I love it. I don't know what that could be for, but it's definitely got to be for something.
Real,
Uh,
right? It just sounds good.
I mean, to be fair, BLIQ and Beyond. Yeah, I mean that could just be like our international, like global kind of
Yeah.
branch. Um,
No?
well, I honestly have the last year, like since it has been so crazy. I'm just like, I know the plan I have for BLIQ. I think it changes all the time.
Mm,
Um, I want it to be a place still where like really good journalism can sit and
mm.
like great writing and whether that's poetic or a little bit prosy or like I don't know. I would just want it to tell really great stories. For
Yeah.
that to happen, I like for even for me to like unleash a whole new batch of content, I need to be able to have the time to oversee that and properly take care of that in the way that I want to ensure it's to a high quality. So timing
Yeah.
is got to carve out for BLIQ and Beyond. But I'm also trying my best to like receive mentoring and still be a student in the non-traditional way and learn. So BLIQ is like definitely not done. It also has a podcast which I love and
Yeah.
I love having conversations. So maybe we'll start with that. I do think that is the plan, is to start back up with it
Yeah.
with the podcast and then
Yeah.
we'll see what else happens. I
Yeah.
want to work on a like photo editorial series that I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
That taps into like quite a niche culture in the UK, which I would then launch through BLIQ. Like that has been at the forefront of my mind. It's just the timing thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, and then obviously get you back on there, whether it's to
Period.
write, whether it's to collaborate on the poddy. Um,
Mm. You
and
know,
I want it to be a hub. I want it to be like a community, like a creative community hub, essentially.
yeah.
Um, People are just seeing themselves represented. And I've always said with BLIQ, I'm like, the stories will always be Black focused and centered. But in
Yeah.
terms of people who help to tell those stories, they could be anyone and anything from anywhere. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really excited. And hopefully a print issue at some point,
Yeah.
because it was
Need
supposed to be a
that.
print.
Yeah. Need that. Need that.
We
Need
need that. Even if
and
it's just a one-off.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
the thing I love about like what you might call print versions of things because it's an excuse to have a party as well. It's an excuse to have a launch party. It's an excuse for people to come together, you know?
Launch party.
Yeah,
Precisely.
dude. For real. For real.
Front Room Media Podcast.